Okay, I'm super excited about this, mainly because this is the third time we're trying to connect, and finally we're connecting. I've been excited to talk to my next guest for a while. He is the co-founder of Pineapple Insurance, one of the most exciting insurtech businesses. I also think that he is one of the friendliest looking killer operators. I've walked around this place, and I think that what they've built and what they are building is exceptional. And for the short time I've spoken and interacted with him, I can also tell that he operates with a sense of humility, calm, and a sense of purpose in himself. And those are the people that I like to speak to. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Ndebenhle.
Thank you so much, Ted. It's an honor to be
Welcome.
on your platform. And this is the third time we've tried to link up.
Yes.
You should tell the audience what happened the second time. But I'm not going to put you on the spot. You know, I've worked past it. I've moved past it.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
And this is why we're in his house today. Because life happens. People get busy, and Murphy's Law, but we navigate. And I appreciate you making the time. I walked around, and I think there's over 200 odd people. What does a typical day and week look like for you?
Sheesh, it's hectic.
Yeah.
To sum it up, it's hectic. But it's just about coordinating a whole lot of moving pieces. So my main area of focus rather is on the software engineering side of things.
Okay.
So just about making sure that all of our client-facing technology is working as it should. That we're shipping out new features, bug fixes as we should, and just making sure that we're operating at the highest level. We're a digital-first insurance provider, so we need to make sure that our digital offering is seamless for our customers.
Critical. When you think on the origin story, what is the strangest thing about the Pineapple origin story?
The strangest thing is actually how we as co-founders got together.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that story, but
I've read a little bit of it, but for the audience who are seeing it for the first time, bless us.
In essence, myself, Manus, Matthew, and Sizwe, both for myself and Sizwe, we knew each other from varsity, but Manus and Matthew, none of us knew each other.
Okay.
We actually met in an innovation competition where we applied for this competition individually, and we were selected to compete in the same team in this competition. So we're put into this team. We all didn't know each other, and we're told, okay, cool. You have 6 months to put together a concept that could potentially disrupt the short-term insurance space.
Oh, wow.
And that's how we started working.
Okay. And that was the first time you guys went in sort of interacting?
Exactly. First time ever we had met each other ever.
Okay.
Yeah,
and how much time did you have to spend together before you knew that there's magic?
I think literally off the bat, we hit the ground running. I think the biggest blessing with us as a founding team is that we all think the same way and that we're all outcome driven.
Okay.
Therefore, we tend to put our egos aside when trying to find solutions.
Nice. Okay.
And I think if everybody is outcome driven, then it's just a matter of making sure that if you put forward a solution, what does the data say in terms of backing that solution? Okay. And if you can put together the strongest case, the strongest data-driven case, and then paints a picture that paints this as the best and optimum solution, then all of us naturally are able to put our egos aside and actually agree and say, okay, cool, actually you're right. So you've put together the strongest case. Let's go with your idea. No egos involved, no arguments involved at all.
Tell me about if you can, what was the finance or sort of fundraising journey for you guys? One, and then two, how much of the code base did you develop yourself or as a team before you were ready to go out to market?
Okay, cool. To answer that question, I'll just take a bit of a step back and tell you a bit more about how that competition worked and the purpose of that competition. So for your listeners who aren't too familiar of what reinsurance is, reinsurance is basically the act of buying insurance for insurance.
Gotcha.
So there's a German reinsurance company called Hanover Reinsurance. They were the ones who actually created that competition that I spoke about. And in essence, what they wanted to do was play an active role in disrupting the short-term insurance space. So they created this competition to basically harbor talent that could disrupt the short-term insurance space. And the whole purpose of this competition was for them to eventually invest in this new idea that comes out of this competition. So the Hanover offices in Berlin, Boston, Johannesburg, and Dublin, they were tasked with putting together 2 teams of 3 individuals. And then those teams would spend 6 months coming up with an innovative approach to insurance. And then at the end of that 6-month period, all teams were flown to Hanover, Germany to pitch their ideas to the group CEO and his exco. And whichever ideas they saw merit in, they would eventually invest in that idea. So part of us taking part in this competition, we eventually put together a strong enough case for what was the version 1 of Pineapple. And eventually they invested in that in our company. But of course, there was a lot of hoops and hurdles we had to jump through. We had to prove the business case. We had to get an insurance license. Well, at the time, we got a broker's license. We initially started off as a broker. And just making sure that we're checking all of the check boxes from a compliance point of view.
Did you choose the market whilst you were doing that, or was that built for Hanover as it was?
No, so we found the market through a process known as design thinking.
Gotcha.
So we did a lot of needs finding and ideating just to kind of see, okay, A, what are the pain points that insurance customers currently face, and B, what can we ideate to address those pain points? And it was through that design thinking process that we came up with the version 1 of Pineapple.
And so the winner would then get capital. Are you able to say how much was initially won?
Well, not necessarily the winner.
Am I pocket watching?
Yeah, it wasn't capped only at the winner, just as long as they saw merits in that idea. So I think ultimately about 3 or 4 companies came out of that competition where the Hanover group essentially incubated those companies and helped them get to a point of getting to market and launching. And yeah, our initial seed round closed for about 5.6 million rand.
Amazing. Yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What is your thoughts around? I think there are some markets where, and maybe you see this in movies and it's true or it's not, but they'll ask you for license, registration, and insurance. What do you think about, markets where insurance is mandatory? Is that something we can do here already, or?
For me, it's very progressive. I think a lot of people don't understand the benefits of having insurance until they find themselves in a situation that insurance could have assisted you in.
Yes.
And I think it's very progressive for a lot of these jurisdictions. You find it mostly in Europe and North America. It's very progressive for them to mandate insurance for you to even drive on the roads. I think what makes it a bit more challenging here in South Africa is just that the gap in wealth is just too wide.
Right.
In a country where a lot of people are already struggling to just cover the bare necessities, it's a hard sell to mandate the purchasing and paying of insurance on a month-to-month basis when you're already struggling with the your month-to-month bare necessities.
To that, though, is there a model where you're looking at mandatory third-party insurance?
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
But for me, once again, it goes back to, and this also goes back to why we sell our motor product the way we sell our motor product. We only sell comprehensive insurance because we strongly believe that if you are going to be insured, you must be comprehensively insured.
Okay.
I think the problem with selling sub-products of insurance, so for instance, third-party only, is that you put a lot of the onus on the customer to understand what exactly it is that they're covered for versus what they aren't covered for. So what you might find is that somebody might sort of purchase a policy that's only third-party, but at the back of their mind, they think they're comprehensively covered. And then they find themselves in a situation where they have to put in a claim thinking that they're comprehensively covered, only to find out that they're only covered for third-party, and then that really obliterates the trust for them. So yeah, we strongly believe that if you're going to be insured, you must be insured comprehensively. And it just ties back to what you asked about mandating insurance. I think if we're going to do it, you must just do it the whole way, because, otherwise people find themselves in very sticky situations.
Understood. But isn't that a gateway for you to access? I think you had said to me that the market is so untapped.
Yeah.
One, if you know the stat, what percentage of, I'll use South Africa, what percentage of South Africans do not have any form of vehicle insurance, since that's the product.
Yeah.
And
About
then
60% of vehicles on our roads aren't covered.
60%.
Yeah. Around 60%.
6 out of 10 cars do not have insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. So does that make third-party insurance a starting point? And now, so if you went and paid for your license, for example,
Yeah.
and with that license fee came a minimal fee that you paid for third-party insurance that covers you for the year, is that a model or is that too?
I would personally be, me personally,
Yeah.
I would be against that approach.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest challenges, and we saw this during our needs finding exercise, we were doing design thinking and trying to innovate in the insurance space. One of the biggest pain points that customers have with traditional insurance is the mistrust.
Gotcha.
People feel as if insurance companies are out there to get them. They don't really understand the products, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if you go ahead and mandate third-party insurance and you don't accompany that with some sort of education, I think you're going to make that mistrust problem worse.
Right.
Because already, if you actually just think about it, the word third-party alone already, if I go to the layman on the street and ask them, okay, what does third-party mean? A lot of people actually don't know
covering
what
the three of us.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Okay.
So I think you have a potential of actually making the situation way worse as opposed to making it better. I think what you really want to strive towards more is getting buy-in from the customer, and you do that by educating them about the benefits of insurance, and getting that trust, and then leading them to voluntarily purchase insurance.
Gotcha.
I think that's a much better and more sustainable approach to the problem.
How does the tech part of your role navigate this complex regulatory environment that you operate in?
I mean, and this is something that we wrestle with quite often. I mean, you know, the regulation doesn't move as fast as technology. I mean, we have AI sort of, you know, leading at the forefront right now. And I think regulation, but I have to give credit to the South African regulator. They try their best to keep up. But of course, technology will naturally always move faster.
Right.
And I think for us, what we always try to do is, sure, we try remain compliant, but we also try put the user first.
Right.
And I think if you can find a balance that balances those two, where you are putting the customer first, but you're also compliant, I think you're treading in good waters. Okay. I think the issues come where you have complete disregard for compliance, and then you just go one way without considering.
Where the tech does not sort of follow the compliance.
Exactly,
piece.
because the compliance is there for a reason, you know, and I think a lot of people tend to see compliance as just an afterthought. But compliance must always be at the forefront of everything you do. But I think it should never be the North Star. I think the North, well, it should never be the only North Star.
Right.
I think the North Star should be both the customer and compliance, and finding a way to make both work together.
Compliance always, to me, feels like such a heavy word. If there are three things about your business that speak to it being compliant, what are those three things? What are those compliance pillars that you have to observe so hard?
The main one is TCF, treat customers fairly. I think that's the main backbone of compliance. Are you treating customers fairly? This means, does the customer actually know what they're covered for versus what they're not covered for? Okay. Does the customer know up to what sum insured they're covered for? Okay. Does the customer know what sort of risk events they're covered for and risk events that they're not covered for? Are you being completely transparent with your policy wording, et cetera, et cetera? Okay.
i.e. easy language to understand.
Exactly.
Is that why these insurtech platforms have a lot more visual components versus a typical?
So if you take a look at our customer onboarding flow, we try make use of a lot of emojis. We try make a lot of use of colloquial language,
right?
Just to sort of put the customer at ease. I think what we've seen historically is that when you start presenting insurance jargon upfront, you lose the customer, because then the customer gets a sense that you're trying to trip them up on technicalities,
right,
as opposed to being completely transparent with them. Okay. So we, to the best of our abilities, we try and make our flows as easy to understand as possible for the user. But we also give you the opportunity of seeing the full policy wording, documents, and T's and C's upfront. So it's a balance of both worlds.
As you're speaking, I'm just remembering something. My What was your first car? Do you remember your first car?
I still have my first car.
You still have your first car?
Yeah. I'm not a car person at all.
You're not a car guy?
Like for me, a car is just an object to go from A to B.
Okay.
So I have a 2011 VW. Yeah, that I'm still driving to this
still have
day.
your first
And I'm gonna drive that thing up until the
For a
wheels
long
fall
time.
off. Yeah,
You're gonna do a
'cause
Jeff Bezos on
I'm gonna
us.
do a Jeff Bezos.
We're gonna ask you why you worth 10 billion and in a
I mean,
in a VW.
I hope I'm worth that much one day. But yeah, but for me, like cars, to be honest, I don't understand them.
Really?
Yeah, but I respect people who understand them and who
We
who
appreciate
fan for them. But for me, I just see it as something to get from A to B.
It's just a utility.
Yeah, it's really just a utility.
Although sometimes people say they're not into cars, but then they love private jets. And stuff like that. Is that what's your thing?
Like my thing that
Yeah.
I enjoy artwork. I collect artwork.
Oh, you collect artwork?
Yeah,
Okay.
I collect artwork.
Buy and sell, or just you're buying and collect?
Yeah, buy and collect.
And then one day hand it off. The reason I'm bringing that up is because my first car, my dad bought me a green Polo Classic 1.6.
Nice.
A very amazing feeling. But I remember making the first insurance call where someone sits with you on the line and reads the entire policy document.
Yeah.
Like we knew
insane.
Yeah, we knew no better.
Yeah.
It was, you sat there and for like 30 minutes, this person is just regurgitating.
You don't mind me asking what year was this? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it was 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. 2008.
Okay.
And so that experience versus a regulator saying, now the onus is on you to read the documents in the app. Isn't there room for someone to just say, the documentation was too long, I didn't read it, and I just clicked accept? I'm sure you may face that.
No, I'd actually make the argument that having somebody on a phone call reading the full T's and C's to you opens you up to more risk as opposed to actually getting the T's and C's in the hands of the customer. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, you're the sales agent trying to sell me this policy. You don't know what kind of situation I'm in at that very point in time. I could be driving in traffic. I could be trying to make lunch or do some work at the same time, multitasking. Who's to say that I'm not paying attention to what you're saying, if you get what I'm saying? And there's also no recourse because I don't have easy access to those phone call recordings to hear and confirm what I heard versus what I didn't hear from you as a sales agent while you're reading through the entire policy wording. But if it's there in my hands or if I have a link to it, everything that I need to read is in front of me.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying. So
I'd
say it's more risky to be
have
of the
someone
approach. Yeah,
orate the whole terms and conditions
Exactly.
in case you're not paying attention.
exactly.
Okay. On behalf of every single consumer, why am I penalized for claiming?
I wouldn't want you to see it, also to your listeners, like you should never see it as being penalized. It all goes back to the concept of insurance.
Right.
Insurance as a concept is people pooling together their risk, right? So there might be, let's say, 10 of us in this room, and we all literally come together and pool our risk. We all pay premiums on a monthly basis. That premium essentially goes into a centralized pot. Now, the next question that one would naturally ask is, how are my premiums determined versus your premiums versus the other person's premiums? Sure. Why aren't we all paying the exact same premiums? Sure. And it all boils down to the actuarial models that are used to determine what your premium should be. Yes. And that actuarial model basically takes historic data and extrapolates that and tries to essentially predict sort of the probability of you being involved in an accident in the future. And in essence, the higher your probability of being involved in an accident in the near future, the higher your premium will be relative to somebody who has a lower probability of being involved in an accident, right? So if I'm somebody who's currently insured with an insurance company and I get involved in an accident, right? I'm basically adding an extra data point to say, okay, cool, based on my risk profile, I'm somebody who has a slightly higher probability of being involved in an accident, hence why your premium goes up slightly. So it's not necessarily you being punished, but it's taking that historic data and extrapolating and projecting what's the likelihood of you being involved in an accident again in the future.
Understood. Now, to that point, isn't there a behavioral component to it that determines whether you are now an increased risk or it was a pure accident, which is what we insure against anyway, right? So in your model or in future models, as it were, if someone claims because they were involved in a drink driving incident, I would totally understand if they've now become a higher risk to you. But if it is completely not my direct fault and I claim and post that claim, and I'm talking generally, I'm not necessarily talking about product or brand or whatever. I think we just want people to understand it. Why does my premium still go up if it wasn't my fault?
So it really boils down to the merits of each of the claims that happen.
Right.
So in this case where you aren't directly at fault, I do believe, and I must confess that I'm not an actuary. I'm not an actuary.
Yes.
This isn't my area of expertise.
Got you.
But I do believe there is a sort of weighing that goes into determining sort of that element of you not being 100% responsible for the accident versus you being responsible for it.
Okay.
I do believe the actuarial models deal with that, but I'm not an expert in that space, so I can't answer on behalf of the actuary.
I appreciate that. When you're trying to do your education job from getting people and to buy into insurance, when I ask you why is it a grudge purchase, what's the answer to that?
It's a whole plethora of things. I think A, the way that insurance has historically been marketed.
Yeah.
B,
say more about that. Historically been marketed. How?
So I think when insurance companies market to their customers, the marketing isn't very personal. The brands come across as very cold.
Right.
It doesn't promote trust. It doesn't promote this idea that, listen, I'm paying you monthly premiums and I'm going to trust that you will pay me in my time of need. Gotcha. It's almost as if traditionally insurance companies have been too hard on the selling part, but not necessarily focused on building brand and building trust.
Got you.
So that's led to the one aspect of why insurance is seen as a grudge purchase. The second, and I mentioned this earlier on, just the complexity around insurance products.
Right.
I think the way that insurance products are presented, it almost feels as if it's this black box of complexity that you're paying monthly premiums to, and you actually don't even understand this thing that you're paying for. And on top of that, you feel as if you're not getting anything out from, this product that you're paying for. There's no visibility in terms of what exactly is happening with this monthly premium that I'm paying on a month-to-month basis. And I think all of those things have led to this reputation of insurance being a grudge purchase.
Got you. And is this the reason, I said this to you earlier, I think I spotted the fact that you used humor to sort of connect with audiences.
Yeah.
Is that one of the critical things you guys identified as a way, one, to connect with customers, but also change the perception that it is not a grudge purchase, or it shouldn't be a grudge purchase? Yeah. It's a part of your,
So I wouldn't even say humor. I wouldn't put humor as the word, but rather honesty.
Okay.
Sure, quite a lot of our billboards are humorous and funny, but I think above and beyond that, it's the honesty that really shines through in terms of how we positioned ourselves from an above-the-line marketing point of view. I think historically, insurance companies haven't leaned into this idea that people really don't enjoy purchasing insurance.
Right.
And I think we did a really good job at leaning into that. Because at the end of the day, we're self-aware. We know who we are, we know what we do, and we know what we sell. We sell insurance, and we know that a lot of people typically don't enjoy buying insurance. And us putting ourselves out there and being honest and basically being self-deprecating towards that, I think that really does sort of build a level of trust with your customer.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we've really been able to do well as a brand, just being honest.
Absolutely. I know it's a sensitive topic for you. I'll phrase it in this way. What is the biggest learning from the recent debacle around the ad? And I'll tell you what I thought was really smart was how you covered the billboard with we thought this was funny at the time. What's the biggest learning from that?
Lean into it. I think with that particular case, I wouldn't say there was a direct learning, because I think that whole case was as a result of a misunderstanding of a concept that we were running at that time. I think the claim, sorry, not the claim, I think the complaint came out of somebody not really having full context in terms of what we're trying to achieve with that particular campaign.
Yeah.
And it was just that individual only who had that problem. I think everybody else kind of got it and it landed, but it was just that one individual who it just didn't land with, and it's okay. I mean, it's your constitutional rights to
absolutely
to complain if you feel as if if you interpret something one way. But yeah, for us, I think lean into it.
Gotcha.
And I think we leaned into it. We put in an appeal and we won that appeal. And it was good to see that the advertising board actually understood what we're trying to do, and they saw that that initial complaints was a bit far-fetched.
Yeah. Did that change the internal marketing machine at all? Did that incident change how you guys go from concept to idea, it's on a billboard, and boom?
No, not at all. Because as I said, I think that whole case came out of an external misunderstanding, not necessarily an internal misstep on our side.
You sure it wasn't an unhappy client somewhere? No, I'm joking.
you never know.
You never know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, part of insurance is that claims will get denied. But we at Pineapple, we always approve valid claims.
Okay.
Yeah, if a claim is valid, then we will most of the time, the majority of the time, approve it.
Yeah. I want to tap into your sort of product brain and this whole design thinking. I think design thinking can be applied to anything. If there's an entrepreneur out there that's trying to figure out how do I build a great product, what's the note you make to them? How do you drive that?
Number one, needs find.
Okay.
Find out what are the biggest pain points of people who would potentially use that solution or product that you want to roll out.
Right.
B, get user feedback as soon as possible, even if it's in the form of you drawing out wireframes. If it's a website, you draw out the wireframes of the website. If it's an app, draw out the wireframes of the app.
Okay.
Go sit with potential customers and be like, okay, cool. Take a look at this design. If this was an app, where would you click first? What would the screen mean to you? What do you think you can do on the screen versus what you can't do on the screen? And then get to market as soon as possible. As soon as you get to market, that's when you start getting real life feedback. And we're speaking about this when you first arrived.
Yes.
There's actually a saying that we used to follow when we first went to market, where if you wait for your product to be perfect before you launch it, you waited too long.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. You must actually be embarrassed of V1 that you put out there. You must be embarrassed of it. But then with that embarrassment, you get quick feedback, and you must iterate quickly and implement that feedback.
Yeah.
And then get new iterations out, get feedback again, iterate, get those out, new feedback, and you continue that process until you have a refined product.
Beautiful.
Our initial product, our initial app launch, the V1 was very buggy.
Okay.
It was extremely buggy.
But you put it in front of people anyway.
We did.
Okay.
And, we got a lot of feedback, and we implemented that feedback and iterated. Rinse and repeat.
That's good. Yeah. Do you think we have enough of these environments where people can learn to build amazing products, specifically in South Africa? Where does someone leaving university, or even leaving high school for that matter, go and do this?
I think the only hindrance at this point is A, access to either free or cheap internet, and B, access to either free or cheap devices that you can use to surf the internet, be it YouTube, be it Google, or whatnot. That's the last hurdle towards us having an environment where people can go out and learn these things for themselves.
Okay.
Because to be honest, everything you need is out there on the internet. I actually am not a software engineer by means of what I studied. I studied accounting and tax, but I'm self-taught. Throughout varsity, I was teaching myself how to code. When I finished honors, I took up a job as a software engineer as opposed to doing my articles, and I just learned from there.
How did you make the mental switch from accounting and debit entries, credit entries. And like,
So I was really
code.
teaching myself in varsity.
Okay.
So the accounting way of thinking didn't really seep into me strong enough. It didn't have a stronghold on me.
Didn't excite
I just
you.
knew that I was just going to finish the degree just to make my parents happy.
This is true.
But I knew the moment I finished varsity, like I'm out of there.
That's it,
I was never going to do articles.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was never going to do articles. That was yeah.
Tell me about your culture. How do you define the culture at Pineapple?
We define it as soft on people but hard on tasks. Another way of defining it is we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take what we do seriously.
Right.
And to summarize the culture is that we create an environment where people can be the best versions of themselves, but we hold people accountable to a high standard of work. We always strive for people to be the best version of themselves, because if you're the best version of yourself, you produce the best version of your work.
Right.
And we have what's known as a hierarchy of competence here at Pineapple, which means that we don't promote people just because you've been here for the longest or just because you're the oldest. We promote people purely just off of the basis of you demonstrating that you're competent.
Right.
So you can come here at Pineapple and within 4 to 8 months, if you can prove that you're extremely competent, you can get 2 or 3 promotions. So we optimize for people who are competent, not people who've just been here for a long time. And that empowers people. We've seen a lot of people lean into that, and literally in a year, they get 2 or so promotions.
But how do you benchmark that against what I might call high impact and lower impact roles? So at a tech firm like yourself, someone writing a piece of code that completely changes how you onboard and convert customers is very different to someone who runs perhaps a social media account.
So that's the thing here. We consider all roles as high impact, and we try to get people to lean into that. Because at the end of the day, a role that another corporate might see as a low impact role. So for instance, someone running a social media campaign, for us, that is a massive sort of opportunity, because the creative that you're creating is essentially for a lot of people the first thing that they're seeing with respect to the Pineapple brand. And if your corporate has already positioned that as a low impact role, you as an individual carrying out that activity, you're not going to be empowered, or you're not going to be motivated to do or be the best version of yourself or put out the best work that you can. But if you frame it as, listen, this thing that you're creating is just as important as a feature that a developer is working on, or it's just as important as a sales agent who's closing sales, you completely shift the mind frame that person is in, and they automatically give you the best version of themselves.
Got you. By the way, is there a reason insurance does not have an affiliate program in 2025?
It depends what you mean by an affiliate program.
Think Amazon.
Affiliate program. Are you talking about like you have customers who can recommend other people to your insurance, and then they get rewarded? We have that at Pineapple. We have
Like
that.
I get a commission of Raz's. As long as Raz is paying, I'm getting money.
Well,
As long as you're paying, I'm getting.
so there's a fine line in terms of actual monetary
before it looks like a multi-level marketing thing.
So the thing is that in insurance, there's this thing called inducement,
Right.
which means you can't directly reward somebody with cash or otherwise for taking out your policy. So you as the insurer, you can't do that. But what we have is we allow our customers to recommend their friends to Pineapple, and then you get points on our app, which can be used to redeem vouchers.
Can we double click on inducement? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So inducement is you as an insurance company giving a monetary or likewise monetary incentive to a customer to take out insurance. So me, if I'm an insurance company, I can't say to you, hey, Ted, if you take out a policy with me, I will give you 100 Rand in cash.
Right.
Because that's inducement. I'm inducing you to take a policy with me, which is seen as
Controversial
unfair.
point. Don't the purple guys do that?
No. So they give you there's 2 things that they do.
Yeah.
They give you a cashback, and then they also give you that if we can't beat your premium, we give you cash.
How is that not inducement?
Because you haven't taken out the policy.
I see. You haven't taken out the policy yet.
Yeah.
But if you take the policy, then you get the cash.
But that's not in the T's and C's of that cashback for them. They say as long as we can't beat the premium, we'll give you cash.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very interesting sort
Model.
of it's
Yeah.
a very interesting space, and I think a lot of guys I'm sure there's space for sort of smart ways to dance around it, but the regulator is very strict on that.
Got you. Do you expand products beyond vehicle insurance in the near future, or?
Funny enough, last month we launched household contents. So the ability for you to cover all of the immovables inside your home or your apartment.
Okay.
We went live with that. That's been going very well.
Congratulations.
So that's our latest
And the
offering
first
of the
base
motor.
is obviously the existing customers, hoping to get them onto
Exactly.
that, and then
100%. Were you in insurance at one point in time?
no, I just
Okay.
no, I just think about it in this way. What does Pineapple look like in a driverless world?
Yeah, I think when it comes to self-driving vehicles, there's a whole new plethora of risks that get opened up, but a whole new plethora of opportunities as well. I think the interesting space will be when there's a large mix of driverless and driven cars on the road, and I think it'll be a great opportunity for great data collection, especially in terms of cases where accidents happen. Who was in fault? Was it more the driverless vehicles in fault or the driver-driven vehicles?
Right.
And I think if you can prove the case of driverless vehicles being more safe than driver vehicles, then there's a massive opportunity in terms of cutting premiums for driverless vehicles, and it opens up a whole new sort of product offering for insurance. So
Yeah, I feel like there's I asked the question because Tesla just launched their
the robo-taxi, right?
The robo-taxi.
yeah,
I almost feel like there's going to be, as a result of this, lobbying for. I was talking to my wife yesterday, and I think I said to her, "Imagine one day being penalized for driving, because if your model now supports a low risk driverless model, you're going to lobby for the fact that human beings should no longer be drivers." I know it's murky waters, but what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, you'll still own the car, right? So for me, that makes perfect sense. At the end of the day, the car will still be yours. You just won't be driving. And furthermore, it opens you up to another opportunity of productivity. You can be doing other things while sitting in the passenger seat. It's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the customer. You're more productive. It's a win for the insurance companies. So I completely, I think that would
You're
make
for that?
That would make sense,
But who are you
especially
in-
once it reaches critical mass.
Right.
I think you can't start penalizing people prematurely. I think driverless vehicles have to reach a critical mass.
Right.
Yeah, before you can get to a point where you actually start doing that.
But who are you insuring in that case? Because I'm no longer the driver.
The risk is, remember, you always insure the risk. In this case, the risk is the vehicle.
the vehicle.
Yeah, you're insuring the vehicle.
Okay. And not the OEM.
When you say OEM?
Not the manufacturer.
No.
Okay.
You're insuring the risk, which is the vehicle. But of course, before insurance companies allow the risk onto their books, which is before they allow you to insure a certain car from a manufacturer, they've already done the data work to actually see, okay, cool.
It's
How
an
safe is this
insurable
vehicle? Is it an insurable risk? Are we happy to take this as a risk onto our book?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once you accept that, then what you're insuring is the actual vehicle, not necessarily the driver.
Okay. As we wrap up, you learned how to code. Give me your thoughts on vibe coding, one. And
You're gonna get me in hot water, but I'll give you my thoughts.
sure. Give me your thoughts on vibe coding, one, and two. Should our kids still be learning how to code?
Okay. So with respect to vibe coding, I honestly think there is room for it, but I also think there is still a need for you to have a really intimate understanding of what it is that you're doing. I think if you rely too much on vibe coding, you might actually end up being in more sticky waters, especially when things start going wrong.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you're vibe coding, you don't fully understand what it is.
You don't know the inputs.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know exactly what it is that has been written for you in terms of code. And when it comes to debugging, when it comes to optimizing, when it comes to altering, you will most likely have a harder time achieving that. Obviously, of course, there are people who are extremely talented with their prompting. So I think your prompting can save you from that. But I think overall, your experience will be much harder than somebody who actually understands what it is that they're doing. I think a vibe coder who actually knows how to code is more powerful than just a vibe coder alone. When it comes to the chat of whether you should still learn to code or not, I definitely think you should.
Yeah.
You should still learn how to code, but I think there will probably be less of an emphasis on, getting to the lower level understandings of code, the ones and zeros.
Yes.
Sort of understanding. You can start at a much higher level of understanding programming languages, and you'll be fine. So there is still a need for you to learn how to code, but you just don't have to go as deep into the theory. But you should understand it.
Got you.
You should understand to some degree
How to code.
Yeah.
So it's still worth
100%.
making sure you put in the time.
100%. Yeah.
Who do you think wins this AI race?
Ooh, that's a very interesting one. Right now, I'm enjoying Claude.
Okay.
I started off using a lot of GPT, especially for coding tasks.
Yeah.
Now, Claude, in my opinion, has completely overtaken GPT, both with respect to code generation and code review. Yeah. I use that on a day-to-day basis to assist with writing code, as well as reviewing the code that gets written here at Pineapple. So I'm thoroughly enjoying Claude from a coding point of view.
Would you say it's made you a 10x developer?
100%.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
And what's the impact on when you're looking at how it's going to affect developer jobs and all sorts of things? If you and a team of, how many of you built the original product? Just the three of you, right?
No. So initially we insourced developers from, so in the team at the beginning was myself and Sizwe. Then we insourced developers from a third-party company. We insourced 2 developers.
So 4 of you were working on the code base.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, how many developers? Ballpark.
So the tech team currently is about 19 strong. In terms of developers alone, software engineers, there are about 8 of us, 8 to 9 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you see the future of, say you're using Claude and it's made all of you 10x.
Yeah, teams will be much leaner.
That team is not growing.
Yeah, teams will be much leaner.
Okay. Have you broken the news first? Have you broken the news to them already?
Sorry?
Have you broken the news to them already?
No, the guys on our team are here for the long run. I think we found a great sort of like a comfortable number of developers.
Yeah.
And as you said, with AI, we've pretty much 10x their productivity as well. So I don't see a need for us to, at least in the immediate short run, to increase the size of that team. Because the productivity is just insane with AI. And the guys on our team are using it every day.
Well done, man. I think that one, I really appreciate your spirit, and what you guys have built here is definitely worth watching. Why pineapple?
The name.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people don't actually realize about the fruit, the pineapple, is that it's a bunch of berries that come together to make the whole fruit.
Yes, the whole.
Yeah. Have you seen that video?
Yeah.
I tried that, but that thing
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah, I don't know.
It's social media.
It's, you know what I'm saying. But the pineapple, the fruit, is a bunch of berries that come together to form the whole. And that pretty much echoes the sentiments of insurance, where the many come together to form a protective layer that's sweet.
I wish you the best. Thank you for making the time for us. Hopefully this is not the last one.
Thank you, Ted.
If you've enjoyed the episode, please comment. Ask him those insurance questions. He's got all the answers. Comment.
You ain't got the answers, Sway.
We ain't got the answers, Sway. Comment, like, subscribe. This is Win is Win.